way for generations.
Dates in the Bible don't quite match the marriage certificate. Uh-oh.
And welcome to America's Family History Show, Extreme Genes, and extremegenes.com. It is Fisher here. I am your radio root sleuth on the program where we shake your family tree and watch the nuts fall out. And if you're new to the show, we're just thrilled to have you, and hope if you're interested in discovering your family's past and their deep, dark secrets, you stick around, because we've got all kinds of great stories, discoveries that people make, and how to do these things. That's what we do here on the show. And I've got a great guest for you today. His name is Robert Charles Anderson. He's an iconic figure in family history research because he's the guy behind an incredible series of books called The Great Migration. And this covers the period from 1620, when the Mayflower showed up, till 1640, when things really slowed down. And he's going to be talking about that with me coming up in a little bit. And his new book out called Puritan Pedigrees, The Deep Roots of the Great Migration to New England. So this will kind of give you the whys of why your ancestors came to North America back then. Hey, congratulations to my good friend Nathan Dillon Goodwin from England. He's written another great book. And if you're not familiar with him, he writes novels that are mysteries based on genealogical research. They're very clever. They're a lot of fun. He's written a short prequel to his book called Hiding the Past. It's called The Asylum, and it's 99 cents on Amazon.com. But there is a link on his website which makes the book available for free. So you go to NathanDillonGoodwin.com and you can get it, and I'm sure you will absolutely enjoy it. Right now, let's check in with Boston and talk to my good friend David Allen Lambert, the chief genealogist of the New England Historic Genealogical Society and AmericanAncestors.org. Hello, David.
Hello, and I see that you've got my good friend and mentor, Robert Charles Anderson, on this week, so I'm thrilled to hear that interview. Hope that will go well.
Oh, it will. He's a good man, and he's got some great stories to tell. I'm really looking forward to it.
Me too. Well, let's start off with our family Histoire news with a story that kind of rings true. Well, if you've ever played the drums, you may have heard of Zildjian, which is a Massachusetts-based company with older origins. This company started back in 1623 in Istanbul, Turkey, and if you've ever played the drums, look closely at the symbols with the Zildjian on it. It has a long family history, which extends into Massachusetts later on.
Isn't that crazy? They started in 1623. They've had 14 generations of this family keep making them. And as I understand it, the guy who's kind of coming up in the family ranks with this says, look, you get this little piece of 400 years, don't screw it up.
Mm-hmm. Well, DNA never ceases to amaze me, Fish, and I'll tell you this news story, which is also on Extreme Genes, about the genetic legacy of the Spanish Inquisition with the people that ended up in Latin America in the New World. It's fascinating that DNA is uncovering the past of people that, well, are descendants from those who had perished during the Spanish Inquisition, these Sephardic Jews from well over 500 years ago.
And, you know, there was rumors about this for years because apparently there were some customs that were carrying on in Latin America, and people were saying, well, that's Jewish. They must come from the Jews from the Spanish Inquisition. And people were saying, oh, they're reading way too much into it. And now the DNA has come out and shown that that is absolutely the case.
It's amazing. And like I say, every time I get a new cousin match, I'm hoping to uncover a piece of a past, but to uncover an entire origin of the people is amazing.
It is. It's just, it never stops to amaze, right?
Well, you know, and even without DNA, people are finding amazing things, like our gentleman, Gabriel Walensky, who's from Ottawa, Canada, who discovered while doing a genealogy on his family after a family reunion that there was a website that had information on his family being deported to a death camp out near Belarus in 1942, and he's been able to research his family. More and more of these type of databases, the Nazis kept extensive records, and for Jewish Americans, or in this case Jewish Canadians, or anybody who had family that was lost or survived the Holocaust, they were able to find these online databases to be useful. And this one is bundearchive.de, so BUNDESARCHIV.de, and of course you can find this on Extreme Extreme Genes under News.
Isn't that amazing? And they actually found the train schedules for these people, and they know what train they went on, when it left, from where, and they can tie all this story together so they know the tragic story of their family members that they lost in the Holocaust. Unbelievable.
It really is. I'll tell you, I'm on eBay all the time as well as you, Fish, and I can tell you that this lady in Ireland spending $1,000 found quite a prize. How about a photo album that had members of Jane Austen's family and also people that were characters in her book? She bought this album of 1860s era photography, and it's probably worth 100 times what she paid for it.
It could be. And it's her hobby to find these old photo albums and then research the people that are in them. And you can imagine her shock at the plethora of family photographs of people tied to Jane Austen. Crazy.
Unbelievable. Well, this week's Blogger Spotlight shines on Michael Lee Stills, who has a blog at missingroots.com. He talks a lot about wiki trees, but he also talks about and is actively involved with 52 Ancestors in 52 Weeks Challenge. Our good friend Amy Johnson Crowe, who's been on the show before, has this great challenge where you write about your ancestors on Twitter, on Facebook, or a blog, and remember your relatives. And it's a great way of telling their story and getting you to learn about and writing about genealogy.
And by the way, David, this is going to be very fun. Roots Tech is coming up. It is closing in very quickly at the very end of February. And there's a new app, I guess, they've got out right now.
There is the Roots Tech app. I already have it on my phone, but the best part of it is part of the app actually has a thing called Roots Crew. So if you're an attendee, a vendor, or a speaker, and you need help, no matter what, even if you need a person to help fix your glasses and come with a glasses repair kit, you can use this app, believe it or not. It's great. Well, I'll tell you, I'm always glad to meet people at Roots Tech. Also, if they come out to Boston, to the New England Historic Genealogical Society in Boston, we've been around for 174 years, going on our 175th next year, and you can save $20 and become a member by using the checkout code EXTREME on AmericanAncestors.org.
All right. Thank you so much, David, and we'll talk to you again soon. And coming up next, the iconic Robert Charles Anderson, the man behind the Great Migration Project, which is now celebrating 30 years. He's written a new book called Puritan Pedigrees, The Deep Roots of the Great Migration to New England. So why did your ancestors come over? Well, he's got the explanations for you coming up next in 3 minutes on Extreme Genes, America's Family History Show. Hey, Genies, Fisher here, and it seems at this time of year, without having to do any yard work, I can get so much done researching and pulling up newspaper articles and also restoring my old photographs. And as you know, we're really fond of a great software called Histoire from VividPix. And if you haven't been to my website yet, extremegenes.com, right there in the rotator at the top, you can see a whole group of photographs from my own collection, from my wife's family, from my side of the family. And some of these pictures are only 30 years old, but some are 125, 130 years old. There's even a newspaper there, and they've all been restored by Histoire from VividPix. And all you have to do is click a button once, and you get 9 choices that vary contrast and lightness, and then you pick the one you want, and you can even fine-tune using a couple of sliders. It is that fast. It is that easy. It takes care of color photos, black and white photos, newspapers, documents, photographs. You got to check it out. It's Histoire from VividPix.
Did you know that Family Search Family Tree is available through a powerful new mobile app experience? That's right. Now you can view, edit, and even add information to ancestors in your family tree whenever and wherever you are. You no longer need to wait to get home or make a date with your computer to view or update your family tree. You can add details to your tree when visiting with family or when capturing details from a trip to the cemetery. You can share new family history discoveries from classroom settings. You can even make the most of your time when waiting for doctor appointments or car repairs. Get started today by downloading the free Family Search Family Tree app to your Apple or Android device. Visit familysearch.org/tree app to get the Family Tree app for free. Exploring and expanding your family tree has never been more convenient. Visit familysearch.org/tree app to download the Family Search Family Tree mobile app today.
Legacy Tree Genealogist is a proud sponsor of Extreme Genes. Based in Salt Lake City, Utah, near the world's largest family history library, we've worked with genealogists all over the globe since 2004 to track down records, find your ancestors, and the stories that bring your legacy to life. We also analyze DNA test results, help you join lineage societies, and find missing cousins. Legacy Tree is the recommended research partner of MyHeritage.com and is the world's highest client-rated genealogy firm. Call us toll-free at 1-800-818-1476 or register online to get a free estimate. Right now, you can save up to $100 on professional genealogy research. But hurry, this offer expires at the end of the month. Even experienced researchers can benefit from our proven and experienced staff of specialists who can bring new approaches to old problems. Learn from our free genealogy tips on our blog at legacytree.com/blog. Legacy Tree Genealogists. We do the research. You enjoy the discoveries.
I got to tell you, it is a lot of fun to dig into a genealogical project, and you think that maybe you're going to be done in just a little short while. Maybe it'll take you 6 months, maybe a year. But 30? I mean, were you? Bob Anderson is on the line with me. Robert Charles Anderson. He is the man behind the Great Migration Project. And Bob, happy anniversary. 30 years of this project now, and it's still going.
Yeah, thank you. It is definitely still going because we're not yet halfway done. There's a lot more to be done by myself and others. It's been a great ride and a lot longer than I expected.
And what a great service you have done to so many Americans who have New England ancestry, no matter where they live. And there's 10 volumes of the original books, which go from what? They cover like 1620 to 1635.
That's correct.
And for those who are not familiar with the Great Migration Project, explain exactly how this is set up.
Okay, so first of all, define the Great Migration. The Great Migration is the immigration to New England, mostly from Old England, from 1620, which of course is the arrival of the Mayflower, until 1640, when that migration slowed down. There was a slow period from 1620 to 1630, and then it built up faster and faster as conditions changed in England. And so that 1620 to 1635, which is 15 of the 20 years, is less than half of the total number of immigrants.
Wow.
So it was really meant as a finding aid and reference. I got frustrated in my early days as a professional genealogist by the amount of time I had to spend to find what other people had already done, what was published, what other people had done, before I could even start doing new research. And so I wanted to build a reference work that would tell you what the state of research was on each of those about 5,700 immigrant families from England in those 20 years.
Wow.
So the 10 volumes you spoke of, covering those 15 years, cover just short of 50% of those 5,700 families.
And I know as a New England descendant myself, actually as a New England native, and when I first got into genealogy and researching my family, these books were invaluable to me, and I know they are to so many other people. But you never anticipated 30 years of this, did you, Bob?
Not at all. I thought I would just spend a few years, 3, 4, 5 years, digging through the journals and the books and making lists and making little outlines, and it just grew and grew and grew, and I think to the better. And as you say, yes, I'm always pleased when people say that they've found them useful. So I've made it almost halfway to my goal, and we're looking forward to the whole project being done sometime in the distant future.
Right. And I know last time we spoke, you were talking about somebody to work with you on this project to move it forward because, age catches up to all of us at some point, although you sound fantastic. We still need you to keep going because there's 55% of the names still to be had between 1636 and 1640.
That's right. Well, I've still got some energy, and I'm still enjoying it, so I'm going to keep at it.
You work on the treadmill a little bit, and
well, I kind of sit down a lot.
Well, I'm grateful, though, that you don't spend a lot of time shaving because you've got the best beard in the business at this point.
Thank you.
And that's really good. And so these volumes of books, they're available all over the country. And, of course, through the New England Historic Genealogical Society, NEHGS, and their library has them all. And you got an appearance coming up here really soon to talk about. And I'm excited about this. January 26th in Boston at NEHGS. They're on Newbury Street at 3:30 p.m. So if our WRKO listeners are interested in meeting Bob and getting a signed copy of his new book, this is a great thing. It's called Puritan Pedigrees, The Deep Roots of the Great Migration to New England. What I like about this, Bob, first of all, I know it's kept you occupied the last few years.
Right.
And you explain basically why these people came over. And there were really different reasons throughout those 20 years, right? I mean, it almost changed constantly because by 1640 it was pretty much over. And there were reasons for that as well.
That's right. Well, there's one general broad motivation with additional factors, but the precise application of that motivation changed, and that's very broad in general. It was religiously motivated, in my estimation, with some economic factors shifting that motivation. But the pressure in England that led people to leave England to go to New England changed dramatically over those 20 years, from the latter years of the reign of King James through the first 15 years of the reign of King Charles, and the changing nature of the Church of England and the people who ran that and became the stronger enemies of the Puritans. So it was a shifting anti-Puritan pressure coming from the Church of England and from the king that pushed people out.
Yeah, and it wasn't just the religious folks either, though, right? I mean, you've got the ordinary laymen who are part of this as well, because some of them needed jobs.
Other than the fishermen, I don't see that. You have a population in that early New England that were not strictly non-Puritan, that did not come for religious reasons, but I think that was no more than 10 or 15% of the total.
Really?
And they were pretty much limited to some coastal fishing communities, such as Marblehead in Massachusetts, and then working on up what's now the New Hampshire and Maine coast.
Mm-hmm.
And they were a different population than the Puritans, but they were a clear minority. And the other 85% or whatever it is, and I include both in my books. I don't discriminate. Whatever their reason for coming, they're in my books if they landed in New England. But my fascination has become with not just the motivation, and this is what the Puritan Pedigrees book is all about, but the network of these people that built over the years that led to their migration. It wasn't just that all of a sudden in 1632 they popped from being Church of England to being Puritan and came over. It was a process that had built up for decades.
What does that mean, an intellectual network?
It's not strictly a genealogical network, but it is still a strong connections between people. The most obvious example is in the universities, when you would have men who were converted from Orthodox Church of England to a more radical reformist position, which is what the Puritans were, by their tutor at college, at university. And then that might be passed down from generations. You can build pedigrees of tutors converting students, and the students turn into tutors who convert students another generation.
So it grows.
It grows.
Yeah. Over
time. And so it's not just that all of a sudden conditions changed in England and a whole bunch of people changed their mind all at once and jumped on ships. It's a deep process that took decades to build up.
Really? So you're talking about going back into the 1500s quite a ways.
Absolutely. I go back a full century from the time of the Great Migration to the beginning of the English Reformation under Henry VIII.
Wow. And all over England and parts of Wales.
Right.
Did they communicate with each other? Was it well organized centrally?
Well, not centrally organized. It was a diffuse network. And again, it was based to a great extent on the ministers, but also on well-educated laymen, many of them merchants, people who were prominent in their communities and had occasion to travel. And so they might be a merchant in a mercantile town in the hinterlands, but they might be elected to Parliament and would end up in London and could network with both ministers and other laymen that way. And the ministers moved around all over the country. They were professionals who sought work where they could find it. And so the network, there are enemies of the Puritans who state quite explicitly that these people all seem to know each other and they all seem to know what each other are doing in other parts of the country. So there definitely was an underground network at work for decades and decades. And sometimes it would bubble to the surface and sometimes it would stay below the surface. And it's those times When it stayed below the surface, obviously that it's difficult to trace it through. There's a period from the end of the reign of Queen Elizabeth to the end of the reign of King James when they were pretty much underground, and you just find little snippets, but if you work hard at it, you can trace these people over the 20 years or so of that.
Well, it was quite a dangerous position, wasn't it, to be contrary to the Church of England in many of those times?
It was. It didn't, well, under Queen Mary, of course, when she tried to reverse the Reformation and take it back to Catholicism, hundreds of people were burnt at the stake. And that continued to a certain extent under Queen Elizabeth, even though she was a Protestant, certainly not a Puritan, but a Protestant. She returned to the Church of England and broke the ties with Rome again. But she continued to put people to the stake, really only the most prominent people, the most outrageous of those who offended against her sensibilities. But she burnt her own Archbishop of Canterbury at one point in 1556. So,
wow.
Yeah.
What a terrible way to go. You know, but, you know, we think about our ancestors. I think it's generally we like to think back the last few generations, 3 or 4 and all this. But, boy, when you get back to this, and there's so many of them out there, to realize that, you know, any one of them is different. We're different people. Right. And these are the experiences that they went through. One of the most famous cases, of course, is John Lathrop, who was imprisoned and then was released briefly and took that opportunity to come to America as they were basically on his tail to put him back in prison. So it was just an ongoing situation for so many of these people.
Right. And it was not always the fear of capital punishment or even imprisonment, but it was an interruption with their life and an interruption with their ability to worship as they desired. That was the driving force. It was ratcheted up. It was the driving force in pushing many of them to go across the Atlantic, which was just, to me, it would have been a terrifying voyage in a little tiny wooden ship across that distance of water. So,
hey, I get terrified commuting to work. Are you kidding me? I mean, I can't even imagine doing that.
Right.
You know, I'm talking to Robert Charles Anderson. He is the author of the book Puritan Pedigrees. He's the man behind the incredible Great Migration Project that's such a great source to anybody of New England ancestry, which covers people coming over from England 1620 to 1635. And Bob, can you hang on and we can talk a little more? I want to get into your book a little more and some of the people you cover in there because there's a long list.
Yes, there is.
All right. We'll get back at it in 5 minutes on Extreme Genes, America's Family History Show.
Looking for an easy way to show off your family history and share it with your family? Family Chartmasters offers beautiful custom pedigree art pieces and inexpensive family reunion draft charts in any design or size that fits your needs. With a free consultation at FamilyChartmasters.com, you can get started creating a new family masterpiece. Family Chartmasters has over 11 years of experience in creating and printing family charts. They can print any style genealogy chart from any genealogy file and can create exactly what you're looking for. You'll work with a specialized and talented consultant whose goal is to make you happy. Decorative charts make fantastic gifts for all occasions. And with Family Chartmasters' option of ordering duplicate charts at half price along with your original purchase at full price, you can afford to give a family heirloom to each member of your family. Contact Family Chartmasters today at FamilyChartmasters.com for your free consultation. Family Chartmasters will give the greatest care to your family history. Scientific studies have proven that youth who know even a little bit about their family history perform better academically and have a greater sense of personal confidence and stability. Genealogy is its own incredible superpower that arms our children with super strength. But how do you get your child or grandchild interested in studying their family history? That kind of stuff is just for grandmas, right? Not anymore. ZapTheGrandmaGap.com leaps the generation gap in a single bound. Author Janet Havorka provides you with useful and timely advice on helping the young people in your life become engaged in their own family history. Janet has an entire collection of books to inspire the young and the young at heart in fun, interactive ways. She also offers creative tips and advice on her blog and in her free weekly newsletter. Stop by ZapTheGrandmaGap.com today to sign up for Janet's free email newsletter with 52 weeks of easy tips, free downloads, and order your set of resource books and workbooks.
Welcome back. It's America's Family History Show, Extreme Genes and ExtremeGenes.com. I am Fisher, your radio root sleuth, and I'm continuing my conversation with Robert Charles Anderson from the New England Historic Genealogical Society, and he's come out with a book for the 30th anniversary of the Great Migration Project. It's called Puritan Pedigrees, The Deep Roots of the Great Migration to New England. So now he's not only telling you where you can find your ancestors who came over between 1620 and 1640, now he's telling you why they came here. And Bob, I only got the book like 2 days ago, so I really haven't had the chance to delve deeply into it. First of all, I can tell you it smells really good. It's a good smelling book, and anybody who really is in the libraries and all that, there's that scent, and I'm glad to have it. I don't know what chemical that is, but I'm all for it, and I hope you publish 3 more volumes.
Okay.
But let's talk about some of the people. I mean, I was looking through the index here, and I was seeing several of my wife's ancestors mentioned in there, Batchelor and Hussey, and some of these well-known early New England family names, and you kind of get deep in the weeds on these, and I guess some of them have to do with your own family. And
right.
My question for you is, first of all, where in the world have you had any time to research your own family for 30 years now?
Well, I really haven't. I have these nice charts, and I have a little list of dead ends that I wanted to research, and I just really haven't had time to do much on them, except on those occasions when my ancestors happen to be the people that I have to write about for my books.
Right.
And that happens in one of the chapters in this book, the chapter on Thomas Norton and Walter Norton. The premise of the book is that the people who came over in the Great Migration in the 1620s to 1640s didn't just decide at the last minute to become Puritans and hop on the boat. That this great nationwide network of Puritans had been building since the beginning of the Reformation in the 1530s.
Okay.
And the story I'm trying to tell is specifically how the people who came on the Great Migration, even if they didn't experience some of the events of the Reformation decades earlier, they would have had the opportunity to hear about those events from a grandfather or a great uncle or something of that sort. In other words, the network was building for the whole 100 years of the Reformation. And so a man, say, born in maybe 1610, who comes on a ship in 1635, would have an opportunity to hear from maybe his grandfather, who had been involved as a minister from the beginning of the reign of Queen Elizabeth.
Wow.
The 1550s. So it wasn't just that they were hearing vague stories that they were reading in books about the Puritans. They had stories right in their family about it. And so the one that relates to me specifically is this Thomas Norton, who was a young man under the reign of Henry VIII, just getting out of college. And then when Queen Mary came to the throne and tried to reverse the Reformation, he was a tutor to a family that was a Puritan, but a noble family that could resist Queen Mary, could survive through her persecutions. And then when Queen Elizabeth came to the throne in 1558, through his connections, Thomas Norton got a job as a secretary to the Privy Council, that is, to the ministers who were closest to Queen Elizabeth. And so in that role, he became a member of Parliament. And so for 20 years, 1560s and 70s, he was a leading member of Parliament who brought bills to the floor, who argued bills for his ministers and that sort of thing. So he became known as the Parliament man. But also in his spare time, he wrote a play. And it was the first play in blank verse in England. So it was, in a sense, an ancestor to Marlowe and Shakespeare and so on. And the impetus for that play in about 1560 was that when Queen Elizabeth came to the throne, everyone was concerned that she should marry and produce an heir. And so at the time, he was a young man in law school, essentially, in the so-called Inns of Court. And he and a colleague of his put together this play, but it was about the king producing an heir. And it was a kind of a left-handed way of saying to Queen Elizabeth, you'd better marry and produce a male heir. And he also earned the title of Rack Master General.
Of what?
Rack Master General. That is, he interrogated these Catholics and sometimes ordered them to the rack. So that's not something I'm terribly proud of.
Master General. I've never heard that.
General. Yeah, he was the only one who ever held the title.
That's not usually on occupation lists in the genealogy space.
No, it isn't. And so I'm not necessarily proud of that aspect of him, but he was a very important man in that period. And he had about 15 children, and one of his younger ones was a Walter Norton, who got involved in the army and fought in the Low Countries during the various wars, the religious wars on the continent. But he was a cousin to one of the leading ministers who came to New England, so they came together to Charlestown in 1630 with his cousin Increase Noel. And Increase Noel was the founder of the town, and he brought Walter Norton over, I believe, as a military man to help in the defense of the colony, just as the Pilgrims brought Miles Standish.
Miles Standish, right, yeah.
Right. So he was the Miles Standish of Charlestown, Massachusetts, if you will. But then he, unfortunately, tried to found the town of York, Maine, but he got involved in some coastal trading, ended up down in the Connecticut shore, and he and his crew got killed by the Pequot Indians, which was one of the distal causes of the Pequot War. And fortunately for me, he left behind a daughter who married and had descendants and so on. So that's a case where I've spent a lot of time for this book researching not just the genealogy, but the biography of that ancestor of mine.
And that's yours in particular. Isn't that the joy of writing your own book? You can put it anything you want.
That's right.
But there are a lot of other ancestors of other people in here as well that you've done some work on. How many overall would you say that you've written a bio on?
Specifically a bio on a couple of dozen, maybe. We know that the ministers came over for religious reasons, but I've tried to dig out information on the laymen and laywomen as well, who were not university trained, were not ministers, but still the migration for them was still a religious migration. And an example of that is a man named Isaac Heath, who came to Roxbury, Massachusetts. And he lived in the village of Ware in Hertfordshire, just north of London. And he got mixed up with a minister called Charles Chauncey, who came some years later after Isaac Heath did. But one of the most pleasant bits of research I did for this book was to dig into the so-called state papers, the official records of the king and his ministers. I finally hired a researcher in Kew Gardens in the official records.
Wow.
Essentially, the royal ministers brought in Charles Chauncey and asked him a whole series of questions. And in one of the questions, he said, yes, that my church warden, Isaac Heath, was one who assisted me and so on in these Puritan activities and so on. And so it wasn't just that Charles Chauncey, as a minister, university-educated minister, knew his theology inside and out. And so you just build these networks outward, but the idea is to include not just the ministers, but the laymen as well, who were not the ones who would be burned at the stake or even imprisoned, but they would be brought before the church courts, the ecclesiastical courts, and excommunicated or forced to, in public, give a strong penance, which could be a humiliating experience.
Sure.
And so it was that process amongst the laymen that drove the vast majority of the migration.
He's Robert Charles Anderson. He is the writer of Puritan Pedigrees, The Deep Roots of the Great Migration to New England. If you're a Boston listener, you can meet him on Saturday, January 26th at 3:30 at the New England Historic Genealogical Society on Newbury Street. And you've got English tours also coming up here, Bob.
Right. I've done 5 tours now, starting back as early as 2008, sort of based on the book's English tours to locations where large numbers of immigrants arose. Of course, we're coming up here 2020 on the 400th anniversary of the arrival of the Mayflower. And so we did a tour this last August to Nottinghamshire, to the places like Scrooby and Austerfield and Babworth, the origin of the so-called Scrooby congregation that included William Brewster and William Bradford. But then, of course, once they had to leave England in 1607 and 08, they went first to Amsterdam and then to Leiden and became the Leiden congregation. And so in June of this year, we'll be doing a tour to Leiden, Amsterdam, and some other locations that are relevant to that part of the migration. And then we have 2 more that are in the planning stage in 2020 and 2021 that will go to places along the English Channel as the Mayflower made its way west to sea.
And, of course, people can find out more about that at AmericanAncestors.org. Robert Charles Anderson, thank you so much for your time. Great chatting with you again and getting caught up. And have a great event coming up on the 26th in Boston.
Great. Thank you.
All right. We're going to talk preservation with Tom Perry coming up next on Extreme Genes, America's Family History Show.
Legacy Tree Genealogist is a proud sponsor of Extreme Genes. Based in Salt Lake City, Utah, near the world's largest family history library, we've worked with genealogists all over the globe since 2004 to track down records, find your ancestors, and the stories that bring your legacy to life. We also analyze DNA test results, help you join lineage societies, and find missing cousins. Legacy Tree is the recommended research partner of MyHeritage.com and is the world's highest client-rated genealogy firm. Call us toll-free at 1-800-818-1476 or register online to get a free estimate. Right now, you can save up to $100 on professional genealogy research. But hurry, this offer expires at the end of the month. Even experienced researchers can benefit from our proven and experienced staff of specialists who can bring new approaches to old problems. Learn from our free genealogy tips on our blog at legacytree.com/blog. Legacy Tree Genealogists. We do the research. You enjoy the discoveries.
Ever wonder where you got your bright green eyes or your infectious laugh? Thanks to technology, discovering your family story has never been easier. And we're bringing it all together at Roots Tech, the world's largest family history conference. Registration for Roots Tech 2019 is open. Join us February 27th through March 2nd for this incredible 4-day event at the Salt Palace Convention Center in Salt Lake City, Utah. Learn from over 300 classes on topics such as DNA, capturing family stories, and preserving legacies. For a limited time, take advantage of promotional pricing. Purchase a 4-day pass for only $209 if you register before January 25th. That's $90 off a regularly priced pass. Explore over 200 exhibits in the expo hall and interact with the latest technology. Join the excitement, join the fun. Discover your family, discover yourself. Discover Roots Tech, February 27th through March 2nd at the Salt Palace Convention Center in Salt Lake City, Utah. Register today at rootstech.org.
Hey, Genies, Fisher here with a shout out to our Patrons Club members at patreon.com/Extreme Genes. This is where friends of the show support Extreme Genes for as little as $1 a month, all the way up to the cost of a very nice burger each month. I mean, a really juicy one. You can support the show and enjoy various special Patrons Club member benefits, such as acknowledgement on extremegenes.com, special bonus podcasts from expert guests like Maureen Taylor, the photo detective, CC Moore, your genetic genealogist, great storytellers and experts on record sets from all over the world. We even offer expert advice on specific questions challenging your research. So go to patreon.com/extremegenes and get signed up. We love sharing your genealogical journey with you on our Extreme Genes Patrons Club. After all, what would you rather have? Inspiring and informative content or another greasy burger? The choice is yours. And thanks for supporting Extreme Genes. It is time to talk preservation on Extreme Genes, America's Family History Show and extremegenes.com. Fisher here, your radio root sleuth, and this segment is brought to you by Legacy Tree Genealogists. And Tom Perry is on the line with us once again. How are you, Tommy?
I'm super duper getting ready for Valentine's.
Valentine's Day. Now, there's a thought, too. There's got to be some kind of preservation project that would make sense for that day, yes?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, we have people do this from time to time. I thought, people shouldn't just do this when they discover it. They should think about it for your loved ones, whether it's your wife or your mother or grandmother. Someplace you've got some old videos laying around that was maybe when they were on a high school team or swim team, or maybe they rode horses in competition, whatever. And you know where that old dusty video is. Go get it. Bring it into your local transfer center. Get a DVD made. Put it in a nice library case. Put a cool cover with some photo collages on the front of it. And you'll have a gift that will get you a lot more than candy.
Okay, that's good. Now, of course, when I hear this, I'm thinking, well, people need some video skills, right?
Well, not necessarily, because a lot of people just have this stuff laying around. In fact, we had somebody bring in some old basketball films, were actually shot in film at their high school, that one of their old coaches had passed away, and his wife said, "Hey, I've got all these old films. You want any?" And they divvied them up. And they went and got some pictures of the women's team and had it transferred and gave it to their wife as a gift. And it shows you're interested in their before you life also. And it brings back really cool memories that you can share with your other kids, maybe that same age when your wife was, the basketball star or something.
Well, that's true. I mean, you could just do it in raw video as well. And I would imagine there are digitizers who can make something a little more sophisticated than that if they so chose, right?
In fact, computers for video gaming have brought down a lot of prices because of processors. But when you take that technology and move it into preservation, It is seamless and it's awesome. So you can get a real good computer that you can use for editing for like under $1,000, and you can take this video that somebody digitizes for you, put it in there, and in 30 minutes, maybe an hour, one night after she's gone to bed, go through and edit it, put some cool titles on it. It's not that hard, and a lot of software is free or very inexpensive, but the prices of computers have come way down. There's one out there right now that's called an ROGSTRIX GL12, which is $1,000. And I didn't have this kind of processing power with my first system, which was $30,000 back in the day.
Isn't that amazing? I have a son who works in L.A., and he's in the film industry, and he does all his editing in his bedroom. Yeah, it's an amazing thing now where we are as far as video goes and how much easier it is to do. And you know what's interesting too, Tom, is now how this whole idea of vertical videos is becoming much more commonplace.
Don't get me started on that.
Oh, I know. You would think by now that everybody would know that when you shoot a video, you do it horizontally with your phone, but still it seems like everybody's still doing it vertically. And now we're seeing professionals say, okay, if you're still going to do it vertically, then we're going to shoot vertically. And we're seeing all kinds of film trailers and things being done with vertical videos, which is crazy to me.
In fact, it's so funny. Everybody's looking at the end content. It used to be no matter what you shot, no matter what you did, you went home and watched it on a television, which is obviously horizontal. But now, as you mentioned, more and more people basically live on their phone. They watch videos on their phone. They chat on their phone. They do everything on their phone. They hardly even use a TV anymore. And it's just so hard to take that iPhone or that Android of yours that's vertical and turn it horizontal. It takes so much work. But now they're making you videos. Even Netflix is doing it, where you can watch trailers in the vertical mode. They are just making it so much easier on your wrist.
I know. You're absolutely right. In fact, there was a story I read this past week where they say there's a new thing out called selfie wrist. It's almost like carpal tunnel syndrome from people taking so many selfies that there's now a new diagnosis for selfie wrist. You got to put the phone down. That's crazy. All right, we're going to continue more with Tom Perry coming up next when we return in 3 minutes.
Looking for an easy way to show off your family history and share it with your family? Family Chartmasters offers beautiful custom pedigree art pieces and inexpensive family reunion draft charts in any design or size that fits your needs. With a free consultation at FamilyChartmasters.com, you can get started creating a new family masterpiece. Family Chartmasters has over 11 years of experience in creating and printing family charts. They can print any style of genealogy chart from any genealogy file and can create exactly what you're looking for. You'll work with a specialized and talented consultant whose goal is to make you happy. Decorative charts make fantastic gifts for all occasions. And with Family Chartmasters' option of ordering duplicate charts at half price along with your original purchase at full price, you can afford to give a family heirloom to each member of your family. Contact Family Chartmasters today at FamilyChartmasters.com for your free consultation. Family Chartmasters will give the greatest care to your family history.
When was the last time you heard your grandmother's voice or saw your family enjoying life back in the 1950s or 60s? If the reason is you haven't known what to do with your old recordings, videos, and films, here's your answer. The Multimedia Center in Salt Lake City.
We brought in a video project to the Multimedia Center, and overnight they duplicated it to DVD so we could meet our deadline.
The Multimedia Center, 2870 East, 3300 South, Salt Lake City. Open Monday through Friday, 10 to 6. Call 801-483-1717 or go to transferduplication.com.
Genies, it's Fisher with exciting news. The Weekly Genie, the official newsletter of Extreme Genes, is here. It's your Monday morning briefing on what's happening in the world of genealogy and family history and on Extreme Genes. Get all the details of jaw-dropping stories of discovery and keep up with the latest techniques in family history research. Get to know more about your favorite Extreme Genes personalities, and it's free. Sign up for the Weekly Genie now at extremegenes.com or the Extreme Genes Facebook page. And when you do, you'll receive David Allen Lambert's top 10 tips for beginning genealogists from the chief genealogist of the New England Historic Genealogical Society. Sign up today for the Weekly Genie. We are back at it. It's our final segment for this week on Extreme Genes, America's Family History Show at extremegenes.com. It is Fisher here, and I'm talking to Tom Perry. He's our preservation authority from tmcplace.com. And Tom, we were just talking a little bit ago about video editing. And I know in the winter, this is a great time because you're not having to spend a lot of time outdoors taking care of the yard and all that. So you can really delve into new things at this time of year. And you talked about the cost of video editing dropping, ridiculously, from $30,000 for a setup when you first got going to about $1,000 today. And there's not just one version of this at that cheap price.
We'll talk about Apple, and we'll also talk about Windows computers, because I know there's people that love and hate each other. But so this one is really, really good. If you're into wanting to get a computer for your family where you can use it for business, where you can use it for your video editing, your wife can use it for her hobbies or whatever she does with her business or her home life, you can also have one that your kids can game on so the whole family can use it. So it's an investment not just for you, but for the whole family to enjoy. And one of my favorite ones is the Apple 27-inch iMac. It's all one big piece. It's not made to be portable, but I take mine with me all the time. If I go on the road or something, I just put it in the back of the van or the Suburban and take off with it. And it's really great because obviously it's got a 27-inch screen, which is amazing. It's really light. It has 64 gigabytes of RAM. It has a really fast processing card, so when you're looking at video and stuff, you don't have to wait for it to load. It's got 8 gigabytes of VRAM. And so like 99% of the people out there, they will love this program. It comes with iMovie. It comes with iPhoto.
Wow.
It comes with stuff already built right into it that's ready to rock and roll. And it retails for about $1,800. And you can go to your local Apple dealer and usually get it down a little bit cheaper, or find somebody that's upgraded to the latest one and get one that's maybe a year old that's still awesome and get it for half that price.
Wow. And that's for Apple, right?
Right, that's Apple, and you buy that, you don't need anything else. It has a keyboard, it has a mouse, it has the speakers built in, it has the disk drive built in. It's like ready to rock and roll. But in the future, if you want to do more and expand, it does allow you to do that also. So if you're an Apple person, this is the way to go. And then when you want to get iPhoto and add these other things, it's free because it's built right in. You don't have to worry about buying them.
Perfect. Who would have thought of that? Okay. Then if you're a Windows person, how would you do this?
Okay, the best one I would get into, which we kind of mentioned a little bit in the first segment, it's the best workstation for editors, and it has incredible graphics cards for gaming. Your kids are going to love it, not worry about ping time. It's made by Asus, which is ASUS, and it's called the ROG Strix, STRIX GL12. And it's amazing. It has an 8-core processor. It has the Intel Core 19 card in it, so it's really, really fast. It has 11 gigabytes of VRAM. And this one, like I mentioned, is only $1,000. And it is great for gamers. And it looks really cool. It's got this transparent side on it, so you can see all these LEDs flashing and lights coming on. And it's kind of a piece of art inside your house, too. It's really, really cool.
I have seen those. They are absolutely amazing. And I should mention, as you go through all these technical things, Tom, that when the podcast version of this show comes out about a week after the radio broadcast, you can go to the transcript, and all the information that Tom is sharing right there is available for you. So if you want to look into these, it's really easy to get it done.
Oh, it is. It makes it really nice. I have people call me all the time and say, thank you so much for the transcripts. I could go back and read what you were saying. And another thing I suggest people do when you're ready to buy, or if you're just kind of curious, go to videomaker.com. They have all kinds of cool stuff from the very beginners all the way to the seasoned professionals. It's a great magazine to subscribe to, and their website's totally free.
All right, Tom. Always great to talk to you, and we'll chat at you again next week.
My pleasure.
Hey, we are out of here, and thanks so much for joining us again this week. Hope you have some amazing discoveries in your own family history research this coming week. Check out extremegenes.com to find all kinds of great stories, and don't forget to subscribe to our weekly Genie newsletter at extremegenes.com. Talk to you next week, and remember, as far as everyone knows, we're a nice, normal family.